everyone. Hi to all the teachers that are here with us tonight and all the teachers that are online joining after the fact. I know that we're right in the crux of report card season. So for those of you that couldn't make it live, totally understandable and very glad to have you here listening after the fact. So Joe, I'm going to ask you to just bring up my little presentation. Before we get into the heat of tonight's activity, I want to just take a little bit of a moment to sort of go over where we're at with this program and what's coming up next. We're here tonight to do Module 6, which is all about story map making. But I figured I could take a little moment to share some check-in, a general check-in. So first, let's see, here we go. Whoop. I want to thank all the teachers that have shared pictures of the field trips they've done since starting off the program in September. It has been so awesome to hear about the water quality sampling you've done this fall. And as you can see by these photos, I feel like the emotion of the youth participating in these field-based experiences is tangible through these photos. So thank you so much for sharing these. And I realize that it's now field season pause for many people across Canada. It's like minus 25 outside where I live today, so not very good for water quality sampling. But whenever you do get back into the field, please feel free to take pictures and share them if you're interested. We love to feature them on our website and use them to kind of share our story. I wanted to just quickly walk through what are the next big steps for this program. The big thing that I would like for you all to start working on with your classes now is your conservation action projects. So these are projects that basically get you and your class to work together to think about, well, what could we do for freshwater conservation? Is there anything we can do as a class? And that could be anything from like, we're going to write a letter to our member of parliament, to we're gonna learn as a class about different elements of freshwater and present that to each other, to we're going to do a riverside cleanup at our local waterway and see how much garbage we're able to collect. I'm just naming a few examples here, but this is really kind of like your project, and it's up to you and your class to figure out whatever it is you want to be. That said, at the end of our experience together this year, you are all going to be sharing your conservation action projects with the other classes engaged in the program. So we're going to have our final meetup is kind of like a celebratory meetup where we share what we've done. And the idea is that you're going to use a story map format to share about that conservation action project. And that's in part why we're here tonight, to learn about using story maps with your class. What else is coming up? We're going to do this kind of learner-led exploration of the project website. Hi, Carrie. Welcome for joining. Or welcome. Thank you for joining. We're just kind of doing a general program check-in here. And so, yeah, next step, learner-led exploration of the project website. Essentially, this is kind of you taking your students or spending time with the students in your class to have them navigate the Freshwater Live website and see what they learn. I will note that in the original timeline, we asked you to start this kind of anytime as of February, but we're going to push that back to as of April because right now I'm doing a bunch of data crunching and data analysis, and I'm in the process of creating really cool figures that I want to share with the students in your class and share on our project website. And so I don't want you to direct your students to there just yet, although they can go and take a look anytime, but there will be updates to the website at the end of March. Next up, on May 14th, we have a live session with myself where I'm going to share a little bit about this research project we're working on that's looking at long-term impacts of timber harvesting on freshwaters. And this is going to be sort of sharing with students, what happens to water after there's timber harvesting around it and how long do those effects last? And then finally, later in May, where you're going to have board games delivered. Thank you to all the teachers who chimed in about the interest of this. There's a master's student in my research group that has prepared a board game that will be ready for delivery in May. So each of the classes should be receiving one of those this spring. And then in June, we'll have our final session, which is this conservation project action share, conservation action project share. And so as I was saying earlier, these conservation action projects are really up to you and your class to figure out how big or how small you want it to be. I had one teacher write to me asking, is it okay if I split the class up into multiple groups to do different projects? Sure, that's totally fine. And the sky is the limit here, right? This can be an art project, an experiment, a letter. It can be whatever you like. as long as it somehow relates to freshwater conservation and taking action for freshwater conservation. And so the idea is that when we meet in June to share about these projects, it could be really cool if each class had prepared a story map in which they sort of tell the story of the conservation action project they worked on. And so today we are joined by our team cartographer and mapmaker Ross Donahue, who is going to be sharing with us how to build a story map. And I have a question in the chat here. Is there a format that we need to be following for this project? For example, like the Geo inquiry model, or are we free to use whatever works for us? The vision of the program is that you can use whatever works for you. I think the idea here is like brainstorming with your class about what might be something interesting to do for freshwater conservation and seeing what's realistic and not. As you'll see on the website in the module for these projects, there are a couple of examples listed of what you might be able to do for this project. But really, it's up to you to use whatever format you like. There is no designated format. Are there any other questions? You're welcome to type those into the chat as we talk about this. Okay, great. So this is whatever works for you. And I'm really excited to see what comes of this. And as I said, it can be as big or as small as you and your class are able to do and want to do. And you can figure out the format that works best for your class. The only constraint here is the theme. How do we do a freshwater conservation action? So we are going to now shift it over to Ross, who's going to share with us some tips and tricks for making story maps, and essentially answer some questions, and then we'll continue to be a resource as you start working on these story maps. And you'll see in the emails that we sent around, we did connect you all with the kind of ArcGIS and Esri team. And so we have a lot of resources available for you if you're running into troubles as you try and work on this. But tonight's just kind of like a primer. So I'll hand it over to Ross. Thanks, Ross, for being with us.
Thanks a lot, Dalal. And it's wonderful to be here with you all. I'm thrilled to be able to share some of these great resources that you have access to and some tips and tricks along the way. So like Dalal said, I'm Ross Donahue. By day, I work for a mapping technology company called Esri, Environmental Systems Research Institute. And by night, I am a National Geographic explorer, really using geospatial technology to tell stories about the world, but also to get out into the field and use maps to connect people with places and communicate science. So for the next hour and a half, I will be walking you through ArcGIS story maps, really how to get started, sharing examples, resources, and then for the second half, we will do a build along. We will work through any pain points, any questions that you have, and make sure that they're answered so that you're set up for success to be able to with ArcGIS story maps yourself. Throughout the session, feel free to use the chat or to ask questions. I want to make sure that this is really useful for you all. This will be recorded, so the first demonstration, I'll move kind of quickly through some of those components of ArcGIS story maps. And it might be hard to follow along or do exactly what I'm doing, but there will be plenty of time for that after the demonstration portion. I'm also going to be sharing an exciting tool called MapMaker. And this is a mapping tool that you can use in your classrooms and for this project and beyond to bring in data layers and have students explore these different data sets and ask and answer questions. Wonderful. So I am going to share my screen and give you a primer on ArcGIS story maps. Perfect. Okay, so let's get started. So first, what is ArcGIS story maps? Just want to make sure that everybody's able to see this. So what is ArcGIS story maps? So ArcGIS story maps is a web-based tool that allows you to combine interactive maps with multimedia content So that's like images, video, and text to tell stories about the world. It's very easy to get started and doesn't require any coding and things like that. Now, Story Maps has various outputs. So one is stories, which are these sort of scrolling narratives. The next is briefings, which is a slide-based presentation tool. Collections, which allows you to combine your stories together. And then finally, themes, which allow you to have a custom look and feel to your stories. You can change things like the background color, the fonts, and really tailor it to whatever your topic is. And they're responsive, so they work across devices. So these can be really great if you have tablets in the classroom, or if your students are looking at various monitors or screens, it'll still look good and function correctly. And how this works is there's different blocks of content that you can add. You can see here there's text content, buttons, images, maps, and these immersive blocks that I'm looking forward to demonstrating in a little bit. Now, some of those immersive blocks really extend the capabilities to create these interactive and engaging reading experiences. It really helps bring your projects to life and communicate them in a really professional and attractive way. The builder supports multiple languages. We see a lot of users doing English and alternative language all the time. And they're hosted online, which means that, as browsers change and things, your stories will continue to look good for a long, long time to come. You might be wondering who's using this tool and how many have been created. Well, we've surpassed 3 million stories that have been created since 2012, and the largest users of Story Maps are educators and students, which we're thrilled about. And it's so fun to see students being exposed to maps and GIS and geography at such a young age, and reinforcing the things that they learn in the classroom. And they're used by tons of organizations around the world, from government agencies to nonprofits, and everywhere in between. And the main way to get started is to go to StoryMaps, or just storymaps.com. Before we get into the builder, I want to show you a couple examples that the team that I help lead have created, and also share some inspiration from the community of storytellers out there. This hopefully will give you a sense for what's possible with the builder, and take what I just presented and make it more of a reality. So this was a story that our team worked on. There isn't a ton of K-8 related curriculum or content out there, and so we wanted to create some content that could be beneficial for younger audiences. And so you can see here we've added this nice visual cover. We've got these links at the top where you can jump to different sections. And then we've also incorporated text, multimedia, and even audio into the story. And what the audio does is it actually reads the text to the reader. So it allows you to follow along really easily. We actually recently worked with Esri Canada to translate the story into French. And so this allows us to reach a broader audience and create resources in multiple languages to support young learners everywhere. This is all free content, by the way, that you should feel free to use and explore after the session. I mentioned earlier these collections, and this is an example of K-8 stories and resources that our team has been working on. I would also make a quick plug for Esri Canada. They do incredible work and have tons of resources, which you all maybe have already explored and know about. This is a story we produced last fall about groundhogs and their impact on grassland ecosystems as keystone species. And so again, this is one of those immersive blocks where you can see just by scrolling, maps appear, different texts appear, and the map zooms in or shows different data sets. And so again, it creates this really rich reading experience. There are no ads in here, and you can really dig into this content. We've got some really talented graphic designers on our team, and again, recommend checking out some of these stories, and I'll be putting some links in the chat after my demonstration so that you all have access to these. I'm thrilled to share this incredible story that was created for this project, actually. You can see these teachers brought in, these classes brought in beautiful drone imagery and documented their time going out with the Water Rangers kit. They incorporated maps really effectively. These are fully interactive, added images and buttons here, and an image gallery. Really brings you into the science and shows the excitement of the students. And so this is another plug for when you're out there collecting data. Make sure you're taking some photos, documenting that experience. And this is the kind of output that we'd love to see you all create. This uses the timeline block, which I'll share in a little bit. I think this is a really clever use of it. When we developed the feature, we were thinking it would be, showing different time periods with descriptions. And this makes great use of the feature to show the steps in the scientific process. So again, teachers are so inspiring. The work that you do gets us so excited to create new features for this product and to keep improving it. So again, keep innovating and trying new things with it. Okay, so we've just taken a look at some of the core capabilities and seen what different teachers have done, what different users have done with the builder. So let me show you how to get started. I'm gonna just pause here for a second to see if there's any questions that have come in. Can anyone see what we post on that website? Now, if the question is about your stories, can anybody see what you post on your stories? Then if you make your story public, then yes, anyone can see it, but there are different publishing and sharing options so that you can keep it private until you're ready for it to go public. And when it goes public, you can then be able to share it with other schools, teachers, that kind of thing. Another great question. So if we do our stories in both languages, do we make 2 story maps and just link through the language button? Excellent question. In terms of best practices, I think creating 2 stories will enable you to have the most control over the language of each story, as opposed to relying on a browser to recognize what country you're in and what language it should be. So I highly recommend creating those two versions of the story. It might seem like more work, but you can duplicate a story and then edit the language, edit the text. So it's, I'll show some workflows for that. Excellent questions coming into the chat. And I will resurface as I'm doing the demonstration and make sure that I'm answering those questions as we go. Okay, we've looked at this beautiful drone imagery a bunch. Let's now get into ArcGIS story maps. So this is the portion of the workshop where I'm going to do a demonstration. I'm going to start out by, at the very beginning, how to get started, logging in, some key things to know as you're signing in and setting up your account. I'll give you an orientation to the builder, including where to find different blocks of content, how to manage your stories, how to add content directly, how to get started with the mapping resources that are built into the tool. And then I'll pause and open it up for questions. And then we can do a little build along together, and I'll answer questions as we go. Okie doke, let's get started. So here we are at storymaps.arcgis.com. This is a helpful URL to bookmark, so it's easy to find in the future. It's also worth noting that up here at the top, we've got some links to additional resources. This gallery will show you a gallery of stories that have been curated. These are great examples of what's possible in the builder, as well as stories about different topics, which could be useful in your teaching or just for inspiration. This resources link goes to blog posts and other resources for getting started with ArcGIS story maps. And then this last link is a e-magazine that we produce every month. We profile great examples of content themed around different topics, all using maps to tell stories. Okay, so let's sign in. So when you click sign in, if you already have an ArcGIS Online account, you can just log in with your credentials. Now, there are ways for all teachers in Canada to get a free account. If you don't have an account, but want to get started, you can also create a public account. The public accounts have access to the majority of the features, but there's a couple of things that are a little different between the public account and the full version. What I'll do for this demonstration is show the full version, but if folks are interested in seeing the capabilities of the public account, the free login without an ArcGIS Online account, I can also show those things. So I have a million passwords, but I've got this handy dandy auto-populate, so I don't need to remember them all. So I'll put in my credentials and click sign in. Now when I sign in, you can see all of the stories that you've worked on in the past. You can see I've got many of them in various states. Some of them are in draft mode, some of them have been published. And you can see if it has a globe, then that is a story that's public, that anyone can view. If it's in draft mode, it's only visible to me. If it's got this little icon here, it means it's been shared to your organization. So again, as you are authoring, your content won't be public right away unless you want it to be. Now on the left here are those 4 outputs that I mentioned earlier. The stories, which is that narrative website, which we'll be focusing on today. Briefings is another really helpful output. This is that horizontal slide-based presentation where you can provide that geographic context or present with the slides. Collections, where it allows you to bundle content together. And then finally, themes, where you can customize the look and feel of your story. Okay, so again, on the left here, there's also these helpful links that I'll let you explore on your own. But again, those can be a helpful place to find additional resources. Great, so let's start our first story. Here, you can start from scratch or with some of these blocks already produced. For this demonstration, I'll just start from scratch. So what this does is it launches the story builder. This is where you will assemble your content for your story and add different blocks of content and start to craft your story itself. I'm going to pause here and just say it is so fun to get into the builder and start adding images and start adding maps and everything. Hours can pass really quickly. And so it's always helpful to have a game plan before you start assembling your content. So what I like to do is I like to think about, what is my story structure going to be? What is the beginning, middle, and end going to look like? What are the key messages or key points I want to communicate to my audience? Who is my audience? Is it, other teachers? Or is it policymakers? Is it other folks in this program? And that will help as you're making these decisions. It's also helpful if you can organize your content. So if you have a ton of images, selecting those, dozen or so images that you think these are the best of my images, and then be able to incorporate those into your story. It's also helpful to think about how maps can help reinforce the content of your story. If we look at this example here, there's this great map that provides some geographic context for where the class went. And you can see that it has a nice theme. It's fully interactive, so you can zoom in and zoom out on it. So again, really effective use of maps. And there's a structure here. So there's part one, keep scrolling, and then there's part two and part three. Okay, so let's start adding some content. So I'm just gonna write some text here, and I'm gonna add an image. I've got some images actually from our expedition in Alberta that I'll be adding here. Great, so I just added my image, and it's okay. It's kind of cutting off a bit of the content, so you can preview it here and see how it'll look on mobile devices. And so when I change that focus area, you can see now, okay, all the people are in there, and also the tent. And if I'm happy with that, I can just leave it and keep going. If I want to replace the image, I can do that really easily. Or in this design panel, this allows me to customize the look and feel of my story. So sometimes it's really effective to have a nice big image to get your readers excited about your content. And so I'm going to go with this full width cover. And you can also change the positioning. You can center it, you can have different effects on it. And so I kind of like how this is looking. And so here I've centered it, and you can add a subtitle too. Cool. Okay, so I like how this is looking, and I'm ready to continue on into my story. So earlier I mentioned this block palette. To access the block palette, you go to this little plus button here, And you can see there's basic blocks, there's data visualization blocks, there's media blocks, and then there's immersive blocks. So let's start with the very basics, which is text. So here, when you highlight the text, you can actually change the formatting of it. You can make it larger. You can change it to be heading font if you want, or smaller. You can also change it to be centered, or even change the text color. And so this can be an effective way to communicate important information and help orient your readers. So let's just add some more text here. And maybe we will just to show you additional text to show the keywords. Okay, so it's pretty easy to start adding text. Again, the very basic building blocks. I'm going to move on to the data visualization area, which really starts to show the power of ArcGIS story maps for and how it's different than just a typical web builder like WordPress or Squarespace or Google Sites. And I highly recommend exploring the mapping tools. I think you can add text and images, and that's going to be really effective. But I challenge you all to experiment with this, the mapping component of ArcGIS story maps. Now, there's 3 different ways to add maps here. So one is, these are all custom maps that I've worked on and made through the years. The second way is through Esri's curated set of data layers that you have access to. These range from thematic data sets to more reference layers, things like base maps. If you just wanted to add some aerial imagery, that kind of thing, it can be a really effective tool. And the third way is through Express Maps. So let's look at Express Maps. So Express Maps is a lightweight mapping tool. It's not meant for analysis or for doing a lot of sophisticated maps. It's really effective at adding simple points, lines, polygons, and text to orient your readers. So let's say you're in Ottawa right now, and you want to zoom in on downtown here. So I've just zoomed in here. Now I can add a point. Maybe this point represents a location where I just went and sampled. And you can add an image to this point here. Let's just let's imagine that this is what it looks like in downtown Ottawa. And you can customize your icon, make it bigger, smaller, change the color. Great. And you can even change the base map itself. So right now it's this kind of light geography base map. If you wanted something really saturated, this is a nice one, this community map. If you want something that shows aerial imagery, this imagery hybrid has labels and has that satellite imagery. And then if you want to show hydro features, this ocean base map is often good, or the topographic is really good. So for now, I'll just use topographic. And let's also add an overview map. What this does is it helps people know where Ottawa is in the world. And let's click save. And in a couple of minutes, you just added a map with a custom point here, and it's looking really good. If you ever want to edit this, you can. So let's go in, let's take a look. I think what happened was I didn't click save. So we'll just re-add this. Nice picture of the wall coming up from the riverbank. And there we go. Let's click save this time. Save again, and you can see here we've got that custom point with an image, and we're really happy with how this is looking. Now with any media like this, you can make it small, medium, or large. And you can also have it either float to the left and have text next to it. So say you just wanted some additional text. And this can be a really nice way of breaking up big text areas with nice maps and multimedia and text really easily. For now, I'll just put it in line like this and continue to show you some other blocks. Now, the other thing in Express Maps that you can do is you can add text. So say I wanted to say, say I wanted to have some text that said our sampling location. And you can have little leader lines that come off of it like this. And you can even add arrows or add additional points. So you wanted to have numbers for all the places that you sampled throughout the day. I think you get the point that this is very flexible and customizable. And you don't need to be a GIS wizard or have a lot of mapping expertise to get started. So again, I highly recommend exploring the mapping features here. Okay, so we just talked about mapping. Charting is pretty self-explanatory. Tables are also very self-explanatory. I'll let you explore those on your own. Images, very easy to get started with. I'll just show an image gallery really quickly. So here you select multiple images. Let's just select 4 for now. And you can see they've come in and they'll be added. You can see they're loading right now. And while they're loading, I'll just take a look to see if there's any questions that have come in from the audience. Let's see. Oh, wow, there's been some chatter over here. Okay. Okay, do students use our account to create their story maps, or are we creating just one altogether? The idea that Dalal said was just to create one altogether. There are, definitely we have seen a lot of students pick up this technology faster than you'd believe. With less instruction than I've given, just here's access, and they've already just run with it. So I think it's, again, for this, it sounds like we're going to focus on doing one per class, but I think students should definitely explore the tools, and if you can give them all access, that's even better. So they would create those using my account. So yeah, we'll spend some time after our demonstration just talking about the best ways to get access and get started with accounts as there are more questions. So where I just left off was we've added a gallery block. You can change the size of this and the layout depending on how you want it to be presented in your story. Maybe you want it to be sort of more square orientation. You can also have it be like a film strip, which allows you to, click to advance each photo. You can also add captions for each image. You do that by going into the options and adding those captions. You can also add attribution, which is really important to cite your sources, whether they're cite your photographers or whoever made the images. And you can see that caption appears when you click on it. Okay, let's keep moving on. So video works the same way as the images and maps, very easy to add. Audio is also very easy to add. Again, I highly recommend thinking about how multimedia can help add richness and capture the projects that you all are involved with. It can make such a difference to have a little audio recording of students talking about the experience of going out into the field and collecting water samples, or even recording an audio snippet as you're out collecting. Just that ambient noise really triggers your senses in a different way and creates a memorable reading experience and can be more impactful. I love stories that use audio, if you can't tell. Okay, next is this swipe block. Swipe block allows you to add two images, two maps, or express maps side by side. This can be a really good way of showing and expressing changes in time or changes between two different things. So another brilliant example here where the teacher and class had two images here, one of a worksheet that wasn't filled out and one of a worksheet that was filled out. Really clever use case, and again, it shows change over time really easily and communicates a lot of information without any text, just a simple visual. And again, humans are visual creatures, visual learners, and so it's a really good way to, again, keep your audience engaged and learning from your content. So I'll just add two images here. There's a lot of clever things you can do, but just for demonstration purposes, you can see what's possible. Okay, timeline. Timeline, I think, could be really helpful for you all in terms of documenting your methods, showing a sequence of actions that you took. Again, we can see how this class used it to show their scientific method, their scientific process. They started with a question, observations, form a hypothesis, collect data. And so again, really clever use case of this map tour block, or this timeline block. Now, just because it says that it's for a time or a date, doesn't mean you have to use it for that. Rules are meant to be broken. Teachers know that the best. So modify, think outside the box here, get messy, take chances, make mistakes. And I think your stories will be better for it. So you could put in haikus here. Experiment with the blocks to tell the story that you want to tell. Finally, I'm going to spend just a little bit of time digging into these immersive blocks. These are really powerful blocks that allow you to have different reading experiences with just a few clicks of the mouse. So the first thing I'm going to show is how to add media, and then I'll show you how to add maps and maps that show different extents. Now, this is a technique that we used on the story maps team in this story where we're walking people through a complex data set. And so as the reader scrolls, you can see we just zoomed in and new data just appeared on the map. Now, as I continue to scroll, data is changing, but the geographic extent isn't changing. So again, this is a helpful way of communicating complex data and walking readers through a geographic story. So let's see. So this is called the sidecar block. And again, let's just make this nice and big, and let's add some text here. And let's just start with the most basic, which is adding an image. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here so we get some. Oh, look who that is. There's Joe. Here's some behind the scenes shots from our session, our live session. Okay, I'll just add this one. So what I've done here is I've just added a new, I've added a sidecar block to my story, and I've added an image with some text on it. You can change the width depending on how much text you have. This can be really effective. You can also switch sides if you like it on the right versus the left. You know, because Dalal is looking left, I kind of like it on the right here, looking towards the text. So it evokes kind of a continuity here. Again, you can change how it's displayed. You can always credit. You can also edit images. So if you wanted to, you know, crop it, create a circle around the wall, you could. So again, lots of creative explorations you can do. And this is why having a plan going into your builder experience can be really helpful, because you can twiddle and experiment with things for hours and hours and hours on end. So if I wanted to add a new slide to this so that they would kind of be stacked on each other, I could either add a slide like this, or I could duplicate this slide. Now, I'm going to just duplicate this slide here. And so now I've got two slides that are the same. So as I scroll, you're seeing the same thing. Let's so now I'm going to show you how to, instead of having images here, add maps. So let's add a map. This time we'll add it from the Living Atlas. And I really love using satellite imagery for these kinds of maps. So let's just go to imagery. And let's go with, let's just go with this world imagery firefly. This has some nice styling to it. And again, we can zoom in really tight on a specific area. So let's get even closer. Say we wanted to show this area here. Save that. Okay, so now we have a fully interactive map here. So as we scroll, it then goes to our map. And what I'm going to do now is duplicate this, but change the geographic extent of the map. So these are, this is my third slide now. I'm going to edit the map to now zoom in even closer here. So what happens is as you scroll, there's this nice animation that automatically triggers where you zoom in on the map. And again, this is something that our team likes to call map choreography, because you are changing the view of the map, either the geographic extent or the data that's being presented. And in doing so, the map is dancing, it's changing to keep your reader engaged and focus their attention on a specific thing that's happening. And it doesn't require the reader to click on a pop-up or zoom around. It's just automatically happening. And so this is, again, a really effective way of using the sidecar block. Let's see, the last block I'm going to show is the map tour block. And again, the map tour block is pretty fun to explore. There's a lot of different ways you can use this. I'll create a map tour and then we can talk about some of the other ways of getting started with it. So I'm just going to add, I won't add that many. I'll just add like that many images. Oh, these are all headshots. I'm going to actually add some images that I took from my phone a while back, from New Zealand actually. And what's really exciting about these is they are geotagged, which means they have location associated with them. This is straight out of my Google Pixel phone. And what's really nice about that is when you add them to story maps, it knows where they're located on the planet. And so when I add them, what will happen is ArcGIS story maps will actually drop a pin exactly where that is located. So here it's starting to load in. Just give it a second. And you can see in 4 clicks or 5 clicks, I now have this map tour block where I've got all of my points on a map located where I was. And as you scroll through them, you can see all these points. So imagine if you were out with your classroom and you took a picture at your school, took a picture on your walk down to the river, took a picture at the river, and took a couple other pictures. You could add all those photos right from your phone and drop them into a map tour block and have this really fun way of remembering all those different stops you made along the way. Now you can also change the layout really easily. Say you want it to be more media focused, or if you wanted it to be a grid of tiled images, you can do that. I'll just change the layout so you can get a sense for it. So here you've got a little map. It's kind of a locator map. And as the reader scrolls, it goes to the different points and allows you to see that. You can also customize the location. So say you want to override the existing zoom extent, you can actually have it zoom in to those points as the reader scrolls. Pretty powerful. Highly recommend checking out the map tour block. You can also add a credit section at the end. And that is a brief overview of the builder. Now, some important considerations. One is design considerations. So there's the option of adding a navigation bar, which allows you to have sections that you can jump to. You can also change the theme really easily. This is that third output that I was mentioning. So with one click, it will change your text font, your background color, and have this really nice uniform look and feel. You can customize your themes if you're interested. You can even add a logo if you're interested. Now, the preview button allows you to see how your story is looking. So let's take a look at that. So this is giving me a sense of what a viewer would actually see. Of course, this is just a hodgepodge of different blocks, but I think you can get the sense for the different elements. Here's that map choreography that we did, and that map tour. And then if I want to exit the builder, I can do it that way. Now, there was a question about publishing. Now you have 3 publish settings: private, organization, or public. You can change between these at any time. If you make something public, you can always make it private again. And it's just it's helpful to know that and remember. There was also the question about if you wanted to do it in multiple languages, how to do that. So instead of starting from scratch the next time you build a story, you can just duplicate this and substitute the text for different languages. Now, the other thing you can do is in your story settings, you can help the browser translation identify what language your story is in. So say I had written this in French, I would make this French so that when the browser, or when a reader opened this in a browser, the browser would know, hey, this is French. Do you want to translate it to English? Because my French is really bad and I wouldn't be able to understand it. So that can be helpful for your readers. Same thing for English. Can just help reinforce that. I will also note that your story is constantly auto-saving. You don't need to go in and click anything to save. If you delete something, you can also undo it like that, or redo it. Excellent. So that kind of concludes the core builder functionalities that I wanted to demonstrate to you all. I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions about what I just showed. Okay, I'm just playing some catch up, and feel free to chime in, Joe or Dalal, if there are questions that haven't been. Okay, it looks like there's some account questions and how to get set up with accounts. There are some really good, Esri Canada is going to be your best friend if you're trying to get set up with an account. They are really helpful and extremely attentive. So we can help facilitate that, but also I think there's been some information shared already. Okay, can we add more than 2 photos? Yes, is the short answer. Let's see. You can definitely add 2 photos. Monthly photos sound awesome. I'm curious if there's a place where you're trying to add 2 photos. Feel free to chime in if Carrie or Dewal, if there's.
Why don't I pop Carrie in and we'll see if she wants to ask her question.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I was, it was actually in the swipe map setting where it had the 2 photos that overlapped. I was wondering if that was possible to put more than 2 photos, but it didn't look like it was.
Yeah, it's really meant for comparing 2 things to each other.
But
you can consider, using the gallery or.
Well, I think when you showed like the map choreography, that how it went from one to another, I think that'll work for it. Basically, I have monthly photos of our testing site and how it's changed. And so, but as you presented later, I think that second tool that you showed would be best for that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, can't wait to see that. It's a really clever use case. The sidecar or map tour could be good example. Great question. Okay, so there's a question about collaborative editing. So full disclosure, ArcGIS Story Maps works differently than Google Docs. I'm sorry to say, you can't just have people co-editing at the same time. That said, there are workflows so that multiple students, teachers can have access to the same story and go in and modify content. Now, if 2 people are in at the same time, an alert will appear and say, hey, somebody else is logged in right now. You will override their stuff if you continue editing. So there is that sort of check and balance. But I would highly recommend sort of thinking about who's doing what on the project. Some classrooms will have certain people focused on the media, certain people focused on the text, and then certain people focused on assembling the content themselves. Hopefully that helps answer that question. And there's some really good blog posts about collaborative editing. Okay, the next thing I'm going to just demonstrate real quick is the MapMaker tool. MapMaker is a tool that you all have access to. I'll demonstrate a simple workflow to create a map in MapMaker. This is different than ArcGIS Story Maps, but it uses Esri technology again. So here we go. So MapMaker is a tool that was created by National Geographic and Esri. This was developed really with educators in mind to help make it easier for students and teachers to have access to mapping tools in their classroom. So let's launch MapMaker. And here I'll just give a quick overview of the interface. So you can see down at the bottom here, you have a lot of different tools and access to different elements. So first, let's just look at the base map options. If you're really interested in like satellite imagery, which is so fun to zoom in on your own, city, school, house, this is super high resolution. It's updated very frequently. If you're more interested in, let's say, rivers and streams, I recommend this oceans base map. It says oceans, but it's really focused on hydrologic features. So you can see we've got rivers and the labels come through. Another one is this topographic with contours. This is a nice, really pretty base map. For now, I'll just use this oceans base. Now, Another thing you can do is actually add layers of data to this, and you can see all the different data layers, and they're categorized by different topics. If we go into the water layer options, you can see there's some really nice thematic maps. And one that might be particularly relevant for you all is this global watersheds option. So you can see these watershed basins. Now this is a global layer. And as you zoom in, you get more detail on the basins themselves. Now they are working to add more data layers related to watersheds. Delal's actually working closely with the NatGeo team to be able to have even more detail here. But this can be a helpful tool for understanding how these watersheds are related to one another, how, there's these different geographic extents for them, and it's definitely worth exploring. There are some more kind of analytical tools, so you can measure distance. You can also change your map to be three-dimensional, which can be really fun for students to explore. Maybe we'll go back to that imagery layer. You can zoom in, and you can even do like a elevation profile from one side of a river to the other and see how this works. Let's maybe trace a river system to see which way that the water flows. So it looks like I might have gotten some land in there. That's all ground. Yeah. And I've got some more land in there. But, I think you all get the point. This can be a good tool for getting some more analytical information or extending a lesson plan. So let's go back to the 2D view. Let's change our base map back to the oceans. Zoom out a little bit. So we've got a thematic layer for our watersheds. We've got, some interesting data on here. Maybe we want to save this map. Now, again, you can sign in with your ArcGIS Online credentials, or you can just use it as is and take a screenshot of this. So you just take a screenshot. I want this. Got it. Let's call it my first map. And then you can download that directly or return to your map. Maybe you want to add a legend. So let's again set the map area. Boom. It doesn't look like there's any items in there. So I wouldn't download that one. But the other thing is you can annotate on here. So let's say you have a sampling site right here and right here. You can add text as well, arrows. You can change the size of your pop-ups. So there's similar functionalities to Express Maps here. And again, it's easy to save your maps, take screenshots, and you can even incorporate those into your stories directly because you can do it as an image. For instance, I just took that screenshot, downloaded it, and here's that image. So if you wanted to incorporate, this kind of static map in, you can really easily. MapMaker's a pretty easy tool to get started with. I would say there's definitely some really powerful features to explore. Think about how it relates to your project, and again, this watersheds layer is particularly interesting to spur curiosities and questions around. Again, there's these mountain ranges. There's a lot of physical geography lessons that could be taught or discussed, or at least here. So I'll pause there. Let's see if there's any questions about Maker. That's fine. We're just playing catch up. Awesome. Okay. Yes. So you just saw the export workflow. Cool. Okay. I will show you one more workflow that I've just been experimenting with in, let's see, in MapMaker, where you can actually save it. You have to first sign in. So you can see I've signed in here. I'm going to save my map. I'm going to call it Watershed MapMaker. I'm going to save it. So what this will do is it will actually save this map, and it saves your ArcGIS Online account, and you can go back to your story. And if you don't want it to be an interactive map, but you want it to be, or you don't want it to be a static map, but you want it to be an interactive map, it will appear right here in my content. And here's that cool map that that I just made in MapMaker, ready to go into your story. And it's fully interactive. And I'll just add some icing on the cake here and show you another way to use Sidecar. So let's add the map in here. So here's the watershed map. Say I want to start kind of at the global extent. I'll save it there. Duplicate this slide, and this time I'll zoom in on Canada, and we'll see how just by scrolling we can take that map that we made in MapMaker, bring it into Story Maps, and really start to craft a compelling narrative with thematic mapping layers and really interesting information associated with it. Cool. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now and open it up for questions, and really make this more of a open office hours for folks to ask questions live or through the chat. If you want to open up ArcGIS Story Maps, play around.
If anyone wants to send questions via the chat, that's great. If you want to ask just directly, because it might be quicker, you can just give a wave of the camera, and I can bring you in. You can ask Ross any questions you might have. I know you might be getting tired too, because I know you've been working on report cards, and some of you it's after 9. But yeah, if there are questions, now's a good time.
Also, if you're tuning in online and you're like, oh my God, that was so cool, I learned so much about story maps, but I have this question, you can email those to our team in the thread that we have with all teachers to share your questions, or you can email Ross and I separately. And you'll see in the follow-up email to this session, I'm going to include the email address of the folks at Esri that are really keen to help us with this. So they're a really good resource to lean on if you have like kind of nitty-gritty questions about Story Map or integrating MapMaker into Story Map. We're here to help support you with that.
I'll also add a bunch of links to the chat that I've been and sharing, and might be useful. So.
Perfect. It looks like we might not have a lot of questions, and I think if I'm looking at the screens, Miss Jenko might have frozen, but she is still there. Carrie, any questions? All good. And then we've got Madame in Northwest Territories. If you have any questions, don't be shy. No question. Ross, I just think you did too good of an overview. I think we ran out of questions. Everyone's saying they're good to go, ready to play around.
Love it. Luckily, this was recorded, so if you're like, what was that step that he did to do mock choreography, that will be recorded in a resource for you all to explore. And again, like Della said, feel free to reach out anytime. I can't wait to see what you create. It's so inspiring for me and for our team and for other teachers and students to be able to be inspired by your work. It's infectious, and I think we need more of that in the world. It just really creates positive impact.
Yeah, and it was really fun to see the story that the teacher that was part of our program this fall, but then moved on to a different position, was able to create before kind of wrapping up his involvement. I'm just copying all the links in the chat so I can make sure to include those in the email. So if you're listening in online and you don't see those links, they will be in your email.
Is that a question, Carrie? Yeah? Okay.
It's more of a comment, Ross. I've actually gone to 2 different sessions on StoryMap before.
Yeah.
And I learned so much more today about how to use this. So you did such a fantastic job. Thank you so much. And I need to jump off, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of you for this project. We are having so much fun. Before Christmas break, I asked the students what their favorite activity we've done, and they said the water testing every month. So just to let you know, they are loving it, and we're having so much fun. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's so sweet. Really appreciate you sharing that.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. Franca, how's your stuff been going? Have you guys been having fun out in the field?
I'm sorry, my internet has been unbelievably ridiculous.
That's okay. I could see you were coming in and out
like 7 times, and what I saw was unbelievable. So I can't wait to see the whole thing. Thanks for recording it. And I reiterate, it has been just amazing. It's great to be able to write my report cards. Science is like chock full, and even just the STEM careers and all those things. And I have little guys too, right? So their eyes are just anxious. When are we going on our next field trip? We haven't even been going out for recess. It's really cold here. I don't wonder if that's why my internet's not working. Who knows? But I look forward to seeing the whole recording, and then we will be asking questions, no doubt. But excited about learning.
Perfect.
Thank
you. Madame, how's it going for you? You guys are doing okay?
Yeah, we've had to stop the field trips just for a little bit until the temperature warms up and the lake melts again. But when we did get to go the first couple of times in the beginning of the school year, the kids really enjoyed it. And I also have little ones like the last teacher I saw in her name. So we have very similar grade levels, and they're just loving being able to test the water, use the equipment. And we had combined it with another program that we were doing, like the National Geographic one. So we were combining both together, and then we were being able to multitask and do both at the same time. So it was great for us to be able to do both, and that one has ended, and they're really glad this one continues.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks to our teachers for sticking around. I know it's a busy time of the year, and I know the teachers in my area are probably extra tired because it's been pretty much all week the kids haven't been able to go outside. It's been pretty cold. Yeah, so they're probably looking forward. PD day tomorrow, Miss Jenko, PD day? No, you guys don't have a PD day tomorrow? Oh, our board does. Our area, yeah. Oh, well, I'm sure yours is coming for report cards.
Yeah, last week. We had it last week, so.
We had it already. Okay.
We're due like tomorrow and the next day.
Gotcha.
It'll happen Monday.
All right. Fair enough. All right, team. I think that was great, Ross.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ross. That was amazing.
Of course, of course. Can't wait to see what you create.
Yeah, me too. All right. Have a good evening,
Cool.
everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.